Welcome to Gallant Conversations. Gallant is a business-to-business consultancy specializing in industrial innovation.
We drive growth for our clients through strategies and insights in brand management and strategic communications.
If you're in an industry focused on progress at the macro level, we're here to facilitate a conversation, starting now. Hello, I'm Brandy Avinceva, and today I have Jared Matthias with us today. He is he's the Vice President of Executive Accounts for ChampionX. ChampionX is the leading provider of chemical solutions in the energy industry, specifically delivering solutions that protect the environment, that protect infrastructure, and that really kind of make this whole energy transition a much cleaner and safer process. So thank you for that, Jared. And he does this quite a bit. He's actually has about almost $1 billion worth of sales under his remit that he and his brilliant team is responsible for in many, many countries all over the world. And I'd love to learn more about kind of how you do that, how you've had quite a career in industrial sales. What do you think is kind of the most important thing you've learned?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brandy. Excited to be here. So I have been in the energy space for going on 24 years with ChampionX, and have been in various roles throughout the 24 years, and particularly in the last 12 of these years have been in various sales management roles at a district level, regional level, and then general manager before moving into my current role is the Vice President for Executive Accounts. And one thing is for certain, over the 24 years that I've been with the company, there's one thing that I've learned that is very clear, and that is the absolute number one ingredient for our success is relationship management and building trust internally and externally at ChampionX. But I think that also plays throughout the industry as well. When we're trying to innovate and deliver solutions, all of that begins with one principle that you must embody, and that's trust.
And how do you embody that? How does that come to pass? How does somebody know that you are the guy that they can trust with their multi-million-dollar crisis?
Sure. So trust comes in a lot of forms. And in our space, when we're referring to trust, that can mean external trust with customers. But just as important, if not more important, is trust as a leader, trust in your own organization, and the trust that you build with your peers, your functional groups, and even most important, the folks that work for you. And whether you're using a sales process or if you're born with the natural ability to build trust and find commonality in your peer group and bring anxiety levels down. There's various emotions that we all go through as we encounter first experience, whether that's with other human beings or if that's just with environment or certain situations. We all experience that anxiety level that kind of gets in the way, if you will, of productive either conversations, the way that you internalize things as your own personal self, but trying to find and lay that groundwork for some commonality where everybody's comfortable in terms of trusting. So whether that's questions and understanding who you are, what you're about, where you're from, is usually the basic level of building those relationships. And when I say building relationships, I kind of use the words interchangeably. Trust and relationships. To have a relationship with somebody, you've got to build trust. And one of the biggest foundations that trust is built on is credibility. If I'm not credible to you in your mind's eye, then what am I going to do for you that's going to be of value to you? Are you going to trust me with your $1 billion project if I don't have any credibility built with you? And so essentially at the beginning of these conversations and meetings that we have internally or externally is building that foundation of credibility, which usually comes with experience. And we have a lot of experience on my team and throughout the organization with many customers around the world, with many mega projects around the world, and we have resumes that are pages long of assets that we've touched, that we help innovate solutions for, such that these operators could produce more oil and gas over time. So that's kind of the external piece. The internal piece is building that trust and credibility with your team. Mm-hmm. We as human beings don't want to follow leaders that don't have that leadership ability, and you're not going to follow a leader unless you trust that individual. And internal relationship building, a lot of that does just come down with experience over time, such that you're a proven asset in the leadership role that you're in, such that you kind of garner the troops and they trust where you're going, how you're going to get there, and achieving the numbers that you're set out to achieve. And a lot of that comes with the experience that they see, or the resume of your experience, kind of where you've been through the organization.
Now, what if you don't have pages of resumes? What if you are still tasked with putting someone at ease, getting them to open up, getting them to share kind of their challenges, not only the motive or the business drivers of their organization, but also their own, personal points of view. How do you coach somebody to become someone worthy of trust externally, even though they may very well be in their heart?
Sure.
At the early stages of their career?
Sure. Great question. You can cite a lot of examples of that happening. Fortunately for me, I've been in the same organization for a couple decades. So with that comes a resume. But there are times that you just described. If we have new leadership coming in from outside of the company that nobody knows. If we move somebody from one region to another region, or from one part of the world into our part of the world, they come in as an unknown entity, and you're starting from ground zero, and you really don't have anything to fall back on if you're in that position as a leader that is striving to take the stand, if you will, to lead the troops into battle, right? And so, in doing that, the number one thing that I've seen that is very effective when it's done in a very genuine manner, or genuine of any kind, is showing vulnerability. And that you'll find even in just personal relationships outside of work, but showing vulnerability of who you are, what you're good at. But vulnerability comes in the openness of what are your weak spots as an individual. Where do you need your team to help support you as the leader? That shows the team that you are a human being. We all get up in the morning and we get dressed and we go to work. And in doing that, there's, we're not all perfect, right? So sharing vulnerabilities of things that are, you're good at, that you're not, really gets a team kind of rallied behind each other, because we've got each other's back, right? And being open about that and sharing that, number one. Number two is communication in a leadership role is paramount to the team's success. And what do I mean by that? When we think that we're overly communicating, we're still probably not communicating enough, right? And so transparency as much as you possibly can, and over communicating is key to helping you get the team on board with the message, the direction, the what, the why, and how we're going to get there. And that builds over time, and much faster to get to that point is showing the vulnerability, over communicating, and that really gets everybody kind of aligned, if you will, so that we're heading from point A to point B.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever seen an instance where somebody just gets really good at showing vulnerability, and then they get maybe too good at sharing vulnerability, and then it's kind of like, you've been vulnerable with this issue for a long time, maybe you should move on? Maybe like, what's your real big issue is growth? Like, have you had that happen?
We've seen it, and we kind of bucket that in the lack of self-awareness bucket, if you will, and self-awareness is key to knowing when to throttle and when to pump the brakes versus when to step on the gas. Unfortunately, self-awareness is not something that can necessarily be taught or read about in textbooks. And for those that don't have a natural ability for self-awareness, the coaching comes a little bit in different forms, and it could be, I think at times viewed as or mistaken for being a bit abrasive or whatnot. So having that self-awareness will prevent you from overly showing the vulnerability aspect of it. But for me personally, I've always been the type to tell me bluntly, Brandy, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? And please, when it's something that I'm not doing right, don't sugarcoat it. The more that you sugarcoat it, again, when we're talking, if we can back up, if we're talking speed to market, right? Based on trust, we want to get from here to there with an innovative solution as fast as we can. That's done on trust. Same thing with coaching internally with leaders is be blunt, but be productive in the coaching that you have, whether that's self-awareness or not. You and the individual are going to get to point A to point B faster. The whole team is as well, because if you have one person on that team that is struggling on the self-awareness side, it brings the team down, from my experience.
Yeah. Okay. And then you talked you talked a little bit about kind of moving to market and speed to market. Talk a little bit more about that, about why trust breeds commercialization.
So if we take the trust piece to an external situation right now, meaning our organization and our customers, time is money, and I think we can all agree that to that basis for why speed to market is a very valuable product for our customer base. And time and money in my space is how quickly you can produce oil, get it into the refinery, and sell it. Right? Either produce it or sell it as gas. So the faster that you do that, theoretically, the more money you make. But that's equally as important in our organization, in that everybody in our organization understands that, such that we are all aligned. At the end of the day, it's if we don't have our customers, then we're not existing at ChampionX or any other company. And how fast that we can safely, how fast that we can understand what those opportunities to innovate around, and how quickly we can produce that, meaning on the bench in our RD&E labs, and then take it to scale up manufacturing, and then how fast we can produce that so that we can get a solution in that customer's hands such that they are either producing oil and gas or they're protecting their assets for a lot longer. And then once you have that understanding, not just you as the individual, but your entire company, then you're marching to the same beat. And customers value that in this day and age. And I liken it to what we see with the generations right now, with the younger generations on phones and every other electronic device. That's all they've ever known. And at 15 years old, they want answers
immediately.
Yesterday,
Yes.
and the industry is there. And so that expectation is, faster is better, as long as you can do it safely.
So essentially what you're saying is they're not going to be second guessing because you are proven out. You are vested. You've proven your investment out. You can deliver faster because there's not that hyper engineering, second guessing, maybe the politics of yes or no sort of thing. Maybe.
Yeah, I would. That's part of the process side of it, meaning the process that we know of how organizations work. Things coming in, and then you internalize it, and you see the opportunity, you build a solution, you make it, and you send it. With relationships and trust, the front end sales folks that are out there in the fields, in the customer offices, in oil fields, offshore, onshore, any part of the world, the ability for that salesman to build trust and build a relationship and build credibility as fast as possible is equally as important, if not more important, so that the customer who's interfacing with the sales rep is comfortable enough to, nobody's comfortable sharing problems.
Right.
But when they're comfortable sharing problems, you've achieved that.
You're more likely to get a
Holy
solution
grail.
for your problem.
And
That's for sure,
it.
right?
And so
Yeah.
the quicker that we can agree that you have a problem in your plant or your asset, the quicker we can get it back into our shop to start putting it on the bench and innovating around it.
So tell me something. If I am, I don't know, are you all typically bringing on chemical engineers, mechanical engineers for your sales teams, your technical sales teams?
We typically.
Okay. So I am new guy, recently graduated from A&M, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I am out in the field in West Texas. Maybe I've never even been in a pickup before, right?
Yeah.
And I am going on my first sales call.
If you went to A&M, you've been in a pickup. But
Okay, yes. Okay, fair. Okay. True. I'm in the field. I'm going on. First of all, do you let these folks go on sales calls alone? Do you just throw them out to the wild typically, or
no?
Okay.
Yeah, not these days, but there were days that we would hire them on day one, day two. They had keys to the car and good luck.
Yeah.
And ironically, that was real.
Mm-hmm.
In those scenarios. It would take about 5 years before that individual picked up enough knowledge and know-how to be any credible resource to the customer. 'Cause
Wow.
we did not have formal training per se on the technical end. It was more of a get with an experienced rep, and when that rep had time to train you over the course of years, he would, but it was not his number one priority was to train Brandy or Jared how to go do what they need to do in the field. But we saw that gap coming, fortunately, as an organization when the oil and gas kind of was really booming between 2005 and 2014, particularly in the deep water market. The gap being
The great crew change.
The great crew change is right. Yeah, and that's a good place to learn.
Yeah.
But we quickly saw that we did not have a pipeline of talent that we could train fast enough that was going to take on all of the projects that were about to start producing in the deep water space in the Gulf of Mexico and West Africa and around the world. Because we also didn't have a formal training program. But our customers also saw this as well and genuinely posed the question to us to say, check us on this, but we're getting a little concerned that you may not have enough people to take care of our pipeline of projects that's spanning over the next 6 years, and they were right. So what did we do for that? Excuse me. We took that informal training of a new hire coming in for 5 years, and we built a curriculum around that and formalized it, and we put mentors in the program that were going to take some of these new hires under their wing, and that was their number one priority for 18 months. Just as equally as important as achieving your sales plan was to make sure that this individual, lady or gentleman, whoever it may be, is at the end of 18 months is competent enough to stand on their own 2 feet in a customer's office or at an asset onshore or offshore on their own, and be that resource as that technical service rep for ChampionX. All right, so that's a big, hefty challenge, and it worked. But having those guardrails around those individuals such that was the number one end goal quickly as we could is to take 5 years of training that was in the past, condense it so that we were basically getting it done in 18 months for that individual. And we have, I think we've probably graduated at least 100 to 150 employees through that program, which is a fast track training program that we coined CapEx College back in the day. And so that serves as the platform even today of when we're bringing in new hires from the universities or wherever it may be to get them on their standing on their own 2 feet. And when I say that, that means simply is somebody that embodies the processes, the sales processes that we teach them. They're technically credible in the field, and together with those two things, they become a trusted advisor to the customer.
And then also they can navigate through the enterprise and deal with the chemists and the folks and what other pieces
is equally
on
important,
and on
right?
And yeah.
And that's a really good point too,
Tell
because
me.
we the expectation is, and I say this a lot, and I probably over preach it because we lose sight of it. Complacency is the worst enemy for a saleswoman or a salesman, and it happens when you don't know it. That's just part of the definition of being complacent. Internal selling is just as important for your customer than the external portion of you selling to your customer. So, as an example, if I am the customer and I have a wonderful technical sales rep that understands my asset, I trust him wholeheartedly, I know that he knows where my problem is, and probably one of the best salesmen I've seen, that means nothing if that individual can't take it back into his own organization and do internally selling to work the process such that internally his functional support and the engine behind him is aligned with what we need to go do to fix my problem.
And I don't know if people really think about that, once the problem is identified and the solution, whether it be off the shelf or custom, and I
Right.
guess in your case it's usually very custom, is kind of inked, you have to make it happen in a huge organization and lots of moving pieces, lots of priorities,
That's right.
lots of squeaky wheels, not a lot of grease. I mean, let's do this. I am going to hold you and raise you on CapEx College. So you all did 5 years in 18 months. I want you to do 20 years in 5 minutes. What is the one thing that you would tell that person that's trying to move? They've just made their biggest sale, right? And they're just like, they're proud as a peacock. They're like, I've got this, I've got it. It's going to be amazing. Da 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 da. Maybe they've even opened up a new market. Okay? And now they've got to make this happen internally. What is the one thing that you would plant in their mind to be able to go do that?
Yeah, that comes back to trust and credibility, the relationship piece in your organization internally, how you navigate through that. If you don't have, that's hard to say one, but I'm going to give you two, even though you asked for one. Being able to navigate through your organization certainly helps with the agility of what you can go do and how quick you can go do it. But you won't know how to navigate through your organization unless you put yourself in a position to go understand who is in your organization. That's relationship building, 101. And to do that, that takes time. It's an investment. And it's just as important as it is with you building a relationship with your customer. So it's also going to help with the communication piece and the alignment. So communication in that bucket, the ability for you to communicate. You are your customer's voice when you've closed that business. But the other thing that you described there is a perfect breeding ground for complacency. I got the sell. It's the biggest sell of my career.
Yeah.
Time to kick it back.
Yeah.
And now it's in everybody else's hand. That's not the case, and that's a lot of times what happens is, I got the sale, now the rest is going to fall on the other organization. Well, you are the salesman or woman that your customer is going to trust you, knowing that every day you wake up, you're going into your office and making sure that the right people are focused on the right thing, which is going to be the solution to his problem.
Okay,
Now,
so
if his customer calls you and says, Brandy, where are you at? And Brandy's on the golf course with James, and they're not working on my problem to get, then right, customers start to get cold feet. Was it just a sales job?
Right.
Can I trust this person?
so okay, so that term is bird dogging, right?
That's one way to.
Describe what does bird dogging actually, like, what is the actual act of bird dogging? Like, you just described what somebody should be bird dogging in a sales organization, or how somebody, what does an actual bird dog do?
In the business sense, or in
In real life?
In real life, a bird dog is two things: picking up birds or pointing to where birds are technically at every day. That's all he does. So bird dog's on all the birds. Just as you would imply that in the office of, you're checking on with RD&E, depending on what the problem is, you're checking with supply chain, you're making sure everybody's kind of ready to go. They could say, this is not your shop. This aren't you a salesman? Yeah, but I represent my customer. You know, and I'm not just checking on you. I'm bird dogging every aspect of the process so that I can report out to my customer where we're at in the process.
And what does it take? And I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. So Jared is the father of two young men. One is he's a pro youth golf player. Tell me the correct title.
Well, he's a junior golfer here in Houston,
And he's ranked here in Texas
Yes,
quite
he's
well.
ranked. Will be a 2027 graduate. So he lives, eats, and breathes golf first, and unfortunately school second. But we're trying to make him equal. But yes, he's moved up the ranks. He's had a successful career so far.
And your other twin boy is recently, or is in the process of launching, a clothing line.
He is.
And tell us about that, because it's about a bird dog.
It is. So the other one is just shown a natural interest to want to do something entrepreneurship wise, and has been very inquisitive around startups. And he too, like most of them, have access to Instagram and TikTok and all the others that are out there, and sees and has seen opportunities for online selling of whatever it may be. In this case, it's hunting, bird dog. And we had a 3-year-old black lab named Bo that unfortunately had a short life. We had to put him down about 1.5 years ago, and he was our hunting dog that we took ever since he was retrieving birds, which was a very early age. And my son Jace wanted to build a brand around our bird dog Bo that embodies essentially the 3 things that we knew Bo to be as we grew up with Bo, and Bo grew up around us. And so he's in the process of building a brand around that with a hunting clothes line that is done in Bo spirit. But we're hoping that takes off, right? So we actually were wearing some of Bo's gear as we were hunting this past weekend.
Oh, very
bird
cool.
hunting and on the outskirts of Houston. So it was neat.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, so I want to get into just very briefly this idea of kind of walking in and being able, again, to put somebody at ease and make them feel confident in let's call it, further to your point about time being the most valuable thing, confident in the investment that they're making just with a conversation with you. So how do you teach somebody just off the bat? You're talking about vulnerability and authenticity. What process do you think, give me a quick kind of rundown of a process if you're meeting somebody for the first time.
In my mind, there's always been 2 buckets of how you do that. And I admire the folks that we've run across in our lives, whether it's in work or even in our personal lives, that they're born with the natural ability to make most people, and they're doing it unconsciously, but they're the individuals that walk into a room that immediately have a calming effect, and that calming effect is a sense that you get that this person would be good for me to hang around. They seem genuine. They seem very trustworthy. They ask. They're interested in you, right? And they're not the ones that walk into the room that is just number one thing is to tell you about them. There's these little traits that I've observed over the years that, there's folks that you can trust immediately, and there's others that we just naturally we're a bit standoffish at first. It's just our human trait because we're not comfortable around them. We don't know who they are. They don't know who we are, and that's where you employ a process. And in our world, we call that there's a relationship tension that's up, and the task tension is down. So relationship tension is we don't know each other, and so there's a little bit of anxiety that comes with that. And how do we lower that task tension such that we're comfortable enough to start to increase the task tension? All right. So relationship tension is commonality. Do we have anything in common? And asking questions around that, getting to know the individual. Where are they from? What do they like to do? Sometimes asking questions around family in the beginning could be a little bit delicate. The key to this is you're asking the right questions that are either fact-finding type of questions or feeling-finding kind of questions that disclose a little bit about the individual that you're trying to meet or build trust with. I've seen, and I think we would all agree that we observe when people are genuinely asking questions about you as a person, it starts to it makes you feel better, a little bit more comfortable, and that's part of that process over time. And building a relationship in one day can happen. Most of the time, it doesn't happen. It's a repeated process of meeting with that person, whether it's your own team and you're sharing at times a bit about yourself, that you're more interested in them and what they can do and what they expect, what drives them, what's their background, what's their expectations, and understanding personal motives and business motives that make that person get up every day to go to work, and discovering that is really what sets, I think, that train in the right direction. Now, for external, if we apply that externally with our customers, customers want somebody in our space, when we're talking technical sales folks, that is intelligent and knows their process as good, if not better, than they do. They won't tell you that, but if you put yourself in their shoes and you have somebody that comes in to see you about your process or your production platform or your production assets, and immediately that person demonstrates to you their competency in engineering or their competency in process, or better yet, their competency in cleaning up your produced water, as good, if not better than you, suddenly, to me, that task tension comes down because I trust what this person's doing. He's exhibited or she's exhibited to me the core fundamentals of understanding my process, and I can start to sleep better at night because not only are my eyes on it as a customer, but I've now got another set of eyes with somebody that can take this back into the organization and hopefully produce a solution on something that's going to make me produce more oil and gas. And that's where we get into what we call this person is a technical resource that can educate me as a customer. And when you get to that point where you develop that between two people, customer and a salesperson, that you're in the best space that you can possibly be. Right?
And so tell me what task tension is. Is it the desire to get things done? Is that high task tension, or the lack of desire to get things done?
Yeah, no, sorry, great question. Task tension is when you first, and this is in the sales process. This is I'm stepping away from leading a team in the sales process. And when I'm speaking around that, specifically what I've grown up around is counselor salesperson,
Mhm.
which is it's published. It's a 4-step sales process that's published by Wilson Learning. They may have been acquired by somebody else at this point, but been around for many, many, many years, probably 3 decades. And you employ a sales process. Step 1 being the relating stage. Step 2 of the sales process is the discovery phase. Step 3 of the 4-step process is what we call the advocating stage. And then step 4, the last step, is called the supporting stage. And real quickly, relating is developing that relationship and lowering relationship tension and building task tension. It's just trust and credibility. Discovery phase is when you are now have the customer's trust and you're doing discovery, asking questions to understand what's important to them, where they may see problems, what's not going right, what is going right, what's important for the organization in terms of business drivers. How do you achieve those? Are you achieving them? Is there room for, that's the discovery phase. And that's where we're kind of sizing up. Is there an opportunity for us to go sell something here? And then the third one is advocating. And that's where you found an opportunity and they have a need and you are advocating a solution that may look like this, or this, or this. And essentially in that phase, they either buy or don't buy. Assuming they buy, then you go to the 4th and final stage, and that is supporting your customer after your product, whatever that may be, is on their asset and they are using it and you're supporting it. So that's the 4 phases of it. I've always said, and I truly believe to this day, that of those 4 steps, the absolute most important step of all of those is the relating phase, and that's where you're building trust and credibility. And you'll never get to step 2 or step 3 if you're not able to lower the relationship tension, meaning we don't know each other. I don't know where you came from, and I don't know why you're here to see me today. That's relationship tension. Why is this person sitting
wasting my time?
And what does he want to sell me? It's another salesman that wants to go. So that's relationship tension. And to get past that,
kolaches.
Or
No.
Yes. That's one way. There's many ways, but that is part of it. Finding commonality. I like donuts. And so we talk about donuts for a little while. But once you lower that relationship tension, then it's time to move into business. And there is always a level of anxiety. I don't care what the salesman is, but making that transition from that to the business part of it, that's a very important piece on when you do it and when you don't, and have you built enough trust or lowered relationship tension to make that leap. And that leap then entails, okay, we somewhat like each other. We think things are okay here. So tell me about your problems. Nobody likes to talk about problems. And that's when you start to lower this task or increase the task tension on, let's talk about what's behind you. That's your plant. That's where you're producing all your oil and gas. And being able to get access to that when you don't even have a relationship is what you're trying to essentially do. And that's the task tension aspect of it.
So in an evolved customer vendor relationship, it would be something along the lines of, hey, let's get the business out of the way so we can go talk more about whatever, but in the earliest stages, it's making sure that you understand kind of who they are.
Great point.
Okay.
Great point. If yes, the answer to your question is yes. As that evolves, as you start to build that trust, step 1 of the 4-step process becomes much shorter. You're going to invest time, and that time could be days, weeks, and months. Relating isn't just making one call and walking out and go, he trusts me, she trusts me, let's start talking about business. It takes time. Does it happen sometimes? Yeah, it does. But once you get past it and that's been established, I always tell my sales teams that when you are to the point that you're in the backyard on a Saturday afternoon of your customer who invited you over for barbecue and a pool party, you are in the absolute best space that you could ever be in any sales process. You have a relationship with them. It's a personal relationship. Why? Because you got an invite from, normally we're the ones that are inviting them to go do things, right? To do that. But when you actually start getting those calls from that and from your customer and you're doing personal time together, that's a trusted advisor type of relationship. And you skip through the front end of time investment much faster. So getting that right on the front end makes the rest of everything that you're doing in your sales process today and going forward much smoother.
And how do you, as a leader, enable your teams, and I mean, from the time you were a DM, to make that upfront investment? I mean, because they've got to make their numbers. Like, how do you remain steadfast in that philosophically when, maybe the industry's going through a downturn or, go on and on? Like, I could make the case, a million different cases for why you just got to go out there and hustle. But what you're saying is basically, no, at ease, listen, take the time to understand the customer, take the time to understand what they're about, take the time to understand what their enterprise is about. We've talked about this before. Read their 10K. Oh my God. Like, how do you remain steadfast in that?
Yeah, you summarized it well. All of that is spot on, and it's sticking to a process. Different companies use different sales processes. Fortunately for our organization, we have used Counselor Salesperson as our Bible for the sales process. So what does that mean? There are terms and examples throughout this process that once you come into the organization and you're trained, and we also not only train our sales folks with Counselor Salesperson, but we train all of the functions on the sales process as well. Why? Because within that process is a sales language that we speak. And why is that important? Because it makes our organization much more efficient and faster when we speak in that language, meaning that we are in the discovery phase with Exxon, for example, and we are informing our entire internal organization that we are in the discovery phase, and everybody knows what that means. Oh, wow, so they're getting close to potentially a sale. And these are the things that we discovered, and we're sharing this with our research folks to see if they see anything wrong with this. And that increases the collaboration such that we know where we're at any given moment, no matter where we're at in the world. Everybody speaks it, we know what it means, and we know where we're at in the sales process. That is extremely important in the steadfast piece of how we maintain that sales process. Okay. The other piece to this too is that individuals that move up in our organization are individuals that have embodied this sales process and language such that it's almost a part of their DNA. And they demonstrate their competencies in it internally and externally. So our leadership team, myself included, observe these behaviors, and they are exhibiting these behaviors internally and externally and on sales calls. And those are the ones that we want in leadership positions that are modeling the process so that you don't get complacent and you don't lose what you're trying to strive for. And you're teaching the next generation and the next generation and the next generation, which is what we do on an ongoing basis. I can promise you that the individuals that don't follow the process or kind of do a hybrid approach to it never see leadership positions in our company. Okay, you can have successful salespeople that can do a hybrid process and survive and do really well and have really good careers. But they know they like to only sell. That's what they're born to go do. They respect the leadership position. Oftentimes they'll tell you, I don't want to be a leader in the company. I want to just sell, and that's okay. We have positions for those people. Most companies do. But for us to continue this is the process that we all abide by, is where you're looking for individuals in the organization that have the ability to sell internally and externally. They model the process, they follow the process, they speak the language of the process. Those are the ones that we look to put in leadership roles where they touch 10 and 15 people at a time.
Because then that's how you're imbuing that discipline. So a basically good salesperson is not going to sell you chemical that you don't need. A good salesperson. So a basically good salesperson won't sell you the chemical that you don't need. An okay one is going to not sell you the chemical that you don't need, and you know it, Mr. Customer. And an excellent one is one maybe that is not going to sell you what you don't need. Your customer knows it and your leadership knows it. Is that sort of to keep it going?
The only thing I would add, the cherry on top of that exceptional one
Mm-hmm.
is your chemical sales rep that's out there actually turning chemicals off.
Oh, yeah.
And your customer sees that.
Hmm.
So what does that tell you? If you're decreasing the revenue of your own organization, and revenue is the bloodline to survive,
Mm-hmm.
as a customer, you see this going, wow, now that makes me feel good.
Yeah, they're playing the long game. They want
This
your business
person-
for life. They care about the industry. They care about the environment. They care about macroeconomics. They care about all of those things, right? So
Yeah. And I don't mean turning chemical off just
literally.
for good
Right,
reasons.
right.
A lot of time in our space, you can pump chemicals and you come in behind the sales rep, and that product's been on for years, and you discover as you come in and do a cold eyes review, we may not need this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time that we did. Let's see if we can turn it off and see what it does to your.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't do anything. Well, we just saved you $200,000. So when a customers see that, they know that a company like ChampionX
Mm-hmm.
or the individual
Mm-hmm.
is working in their best interest. And 9 times out of 10, the reason that the customer is using the company is because the customer trusts the individual and could care less about who the company is.
Mm.
He just knows that his rep is going to do right by him when you see that kind of behavior.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you could make of course, I'm a brand strategist, so you would say, well, and then they could make the assumption that the organization is going to choose other like-minded individuals because they have a strong brand and so forth.
That's right.
Yeah. So, well, listen, Jared, thank you so much. I can't wait to dive into this a little bit more because I do think that this concept of kind of accelerating innovation with trust across such a complex industry is certainly a fascinating one. So I certainly appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Thanks. Good. Okay. Thank you, Nico.
Very nice.
That's cool.
Yeah. So next one, what do you want to talk about?
Was I talking too much?
No. That's perfect.
I was putting you to sleep.
No.
I didn't know if I was on a rambling circle. Was I going to be able to put it back on the tracks?
Mm-mm. It was perfect.
But your summary of some of my rambling bullshit, as we say, was perfect.
Okay. Good.
You nailed it.
Good. Yay. Thank you.
You brought me back to it. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Well, Wilson, I'll find out if Wilson Learning.
Thanks for joining this conversation with Gallant.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained meaningful insight.
If you find this entertaining or helpful, subscribe and leave us a review.
And don't forget to share this conversation with your network.
For more resources and to stay updated with Gallant Insights and our amazing client portfolio companies, visit gallantculture.com.
Join us next time as we continue to explore perspectives within the industrial innovation space propelling us forward.
Until then, we ask you to stay thoughtful and curious.